This entire carbon credit market is like a drug market. People are willing to pay money for high quality projects. Now this Wayne Enterprise, the CEO is Bruce Wayne. This is Clark Kent. Now Clark Kent can put up sustainable transition projects, generate credits out of it, and sell those credits to Bruce Wayne. So what will happen is now Clark Kent and Bruce Wayne, they were already dealing in goods, but they're also dealing in carbon credits right now.
But I had one question for you. Why do you hate trees so much? Awesome. Yeah, welcome, man. How are you?
All good, man. All good. Always nice to see you.
Yeah,
Super excited.
that's great. But I had one question for you. Why do you hate trees so much?
Why do I hate trees?
Yeah,
I don't hate trees. I love trees.
no, I'm playing with you. So basically, one of your unique selling points, as I understand, in ReNewCred is tech-based offsets versus nature-based.
That's true.
So wanted to know more about that and why did you choose the tech-based offsets versus nature-based?
So at ReNewCred, what we are essentially doing is we are making it easier for buyers of carbon credits to understand where they're investing their money, in what quality of projects, and where exactly does their money go. How is it making this world a better place to live in? The problem with nature-based offsets is, and I will give you a very layman example. Suppose I set up a forest with 100 trees. I don't know the quality of seed. I don't know who is watering the plants. I don't know whether someone has come and say taken away at least five of the trees for their own purposes. I don't exactly know what is happening, how much CO2 is removed or reduced from the atmosphere. These are some constraints with nature-based offsets. The other constraint is also more philosophical, and this is more something that's personal to me. I feel if you have place to set up a forest, just set up a forest. Why do you want to earn money out of it? Why do you want to convert it into a climate-based project? So these are some problems with nature-based offsets. This entire carbon credit market is like a drug market. People are willing to pay money for high-quality projects, and that is why we have started developing, and everything we do at ReNewCred is more about tech-based or engineered projects. So some low-hanging fruits are renewable energy, methane reduction, engineered biochar, EV fleets, and then DAX and CCUS. So that's my problem with trees, but I love trees.
Nice. So, but is the engineered solutions more effective than the nature-based solutions as well?
Yeah, engineered solutions are highly effective because of two reasons. One is you get live real-time data on how much carbon CO2 it is either removing or reducing from the atmosphere. Now, how do you get live data? Because these are engineered solutions, you can put IoT devices on the machinery and start getting data. So again, a very layman example, say I set up a solar plant and I set up what is called an IoT device on the battery or on the plant in itself. Now I will start getting data when the plant was active, when the plant was not active, how much sunlight it fall onto it, what was the efficiency, etc. So as a buyer of credits, as somebody is putting in money into the project, I'm actually know where my money is going, and that is how it becomes highly efficient. Number one. Number two, it also leads to industrial decarbonization. A lot of our carbon emissions are because of the industries. The entire debate of climate change happened because of massive industrialization. So we are trying to reverse that also. That's why tech-based are so awesome.
Interesting. So I remember reading this analogy a couple of years ago. I can't remember the scientist's name, but it was a book about climate change where she was talking about the state of our carbon emissions in the world today. So she gave this analogy where it's you can compare our carbon emissions to a bathtub, right? It's already full, right? And now it's actually overflowing. There's more water just getting poured on and on and on, right? But so all the talk about removing carbon from the atmosphere is not actually it's tackling probably carbon that's getting added, but it's not really moving the needle on the carbon that's already there, which needs to be taken care of, right? And so how does your solution like play into this, and is there actually hope? Because I don't think, like, honestly, when I think about climate change, I feel kind of hopeless about the
Yeah.
situation.
So three things over here. First is, if you have observed, I'm using the word removal and reduction every time I say. So there are multiple kinds of projects. Some are which remove or mitigate climate CO2 impact. So something like renewable energy, instead of using fossil fuels, now you're using that. So you're mitigating the impact. There are some solutions, the simplest being biochar. So what is biochar? It is carbon soil sequestered in a very densely populated environment in the form of soils, and then put it into the crop for betterment of crop. Now biochar leads to carbon sequestration for anywhere between 100 to 1000 years. So there are some projects that remove CO2. Another example is direct air capture. You plug in CO2 from atmosphere, or CCUS, which is called a carbon capture utilization and storage. You remove CO2 from atmosphere and put it deep into the earth. So that's the removal, and that is where your bathtub will now start reducing water in it. That's number one. Number two, historically, the costs of these projects were very high. But now what is happening is something called a Wright's law is playing out. So Wright's law says that every time production increases, costs come down. So we have seen Wright's law play out in renewable energy. What was 70 rupees watt in India in 2015 dropped to 17 rupees watt on solar cost in 2019. 70 to 17. He's saying same thing play out in direct air capture where costs have already come down by 50%. So removal is there. That was number two. Number three, as far as climate is concerned, there's a lot of noise but no hardcore solutions. People are shouting, no climate change. And good credit to them. We need activists, we need people to generate awareness. But now we also need a lot of people to start coming up with solutions. And your next wave of startups is going to be climate folks now.
Interesting, interesting. I want to get more into rice law because I have read about when I was researching for this about the economic viability of CCUs. I want to get back to you on this.
Sure.
Uh, but I think it's also a good time for you to give a pretty holistic idea of what ReNewCred actually does, right? Like when I was researching, there were a lot of moving parts. and,
Yeah.
and, and I think the website is purposely made to be sort of not easy to read as like a SaaS product or something would, but because I think that's the kind of market that you're going for, right? The kind of customers you're targeting. But so just like, please, can you give a very holistic or layman's understanding of what ReNewCred does?
So unfortunately, the climate market, the voluntary carbon market that we are working in, is full of jargons and mysterious words that normal people don't understand. And that is why it's a complicated market in that sense. But I will try to break it down what we do. So, in very technical terms, we are a carbon credit standard, registry, and ratings company. And let me give you a little bit of history about how did the carbon market evolve. So, until the 1990s, the cost of climate change were externalized. That is, the entities that were harming the climate were not essentially paying anything for it. Then in 1992, we had something called a Rio de Janeiro summit. And in 1997, a beautiful protocol came up called the Kyoto Protocol, under which two market mechanisms got developed. One is called a compliance market, the other is called a voluntary carbon market. Now, when I say market mechanism, these were processes through which entities now can have to start paying for the climate damage they are doing. Again, I'm putting this all in very layman terms. There are obviously a lot of nitty-gritties involved. What's a compliance market? This is like a kind of a carbon tax. Government tells us both to emit not more than say 1 ton of CO2. You do zero point 0.9, I do 1.1. So I will buy certificates or credit worth of zero point 0.1 from you. There are various mechanisms in how a compliance market works. 13 countries, not including India, have an active compliance market right now. What's a voluntary carbon market? Voluntary carbon market is something not regulated by law, but voluntarily entities want to reduce their climate impact, want to decarbonize their operations. So the essential question comes, why do they want to do that? So there are multiple reasons to it. The biggest is customers have become aware and are now asking companies, are you climate conscious? Are you thinking about the world? That's number one. Number two, investors and stakeholders are asking for it. People want to put money in ESG friendly companies. That's what's happening. Number three, there are a lot of cross-border requirements. So there's something called CBAM, Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism tax, that UK has come up with. Now, if I have to put goods into UK borders or EU borders, I have to pay that. I have to be climate conscious. And then there are some domestic policies, like every state has a pollution control board. I come from Gujarat, so we have GPCB. They are asking to reduce my carbon impact. And that is where voluntary carbon market becomes very essential. Now, in a voluntary carbon market, and when I say market, it's not like stock exchange or something, it's just trade between two a good or commodity. There are four key essential players. The one is called a project developer, the person who is making this sustainable transition happen. The other is called a verifier, who goes and verifies whether this person actually did something or not. The third is called a registry or a standard and registry. Standard is a set of rules. Registry is where it's like a ledger where all your carbon credits are written. Think of it like the ISO or the RBI of the voluntary carbon market. And the fourth is obviously a buyer. And in buyers, you will have multiple entities like an exchange, a broker, a trader, or a direct buyer. A subtle nuance over here is that no two entities can be same. So a registry can't be a verifier can't be a project developer obviously can't be a buyer, because then there will be conflict of interest. The person writing rules can't verify, the person writing rules can't build his or her own project. What's the problem right now in voluntary carbon market? We'll talk that first, and then what ReNewCred is doing. Like I said, people are willing to put money for high quality projects, but they don't want to put in their money into something they can't trust. So the world's largest registry, it's called Vera right now. A couple of years ago, Guardian, the newspaper, did a report on Vera and figured out 90% of their project, there's something called a Cariba Red Plus Plus project, 90% of their offsets were fake and their CEO had to resign. So there's a trust deficit in the project, in the voluntary carbon market right now. So that's number one. Number two, the process is not digitalized. The entire verification takes anywhere from 7 months to 12 months. Somebody has to go over there, see the site, all of that work. So that's the second biggest problem. And the third problem is the market is not democratized. That is, smaller companies like a waste management company, a plastic recycling company, startup right now, say born out of build3, they can't enter the voluntary carbon markets right now because the cost structures are not flexible, transparent. And fourth biggest problem is data is missing. And when I say data, financial institutions want to give loans at a lower interest rate to projects that are doing good for the climate, but they don't understand climate. Like banks, they don't have the technical acumen to understand climate. So these are the four problems. Now coming to what ReNewCred is doing. Number one, we are global south, and every time I use the word global south, I mean developing nations. We are global south's first standard and registry. There is no standard registry in entire global south. Whereas if you will do a simple Google search, you will realize there are a lot of projects coming from India and Bangladesh and Cookstove projects and whatnot. As we speak, we are interviewing about 1,350 scientists to build a community of 250 scientists who will build these methodologies. All our standards and methodologies are subjected to 4 peer review cycles. So they are very strict, very rigorous. Number one. Number two, we are digitalizing the entire process because, like I said, we use IoT sensors. We only do engineer. So we're bringing that time down from a minimum of 7 days to a maximum, from a minimum of 7 months to a maximum of 7 days. That's the time reduction we are doing in the entire verification. And now you get live data. So as a consumer, suppose Elton Coelho himself can log into the dashboard and see how that project is performing, where is the money going, how much CO2 it has reduced or removed from the atmosphere. You can see live yourself. So you know what happened. And the third thing that we are doing is to every project, we provide a climate rating or climate performance rating. Okay, this project is good, this project will save so much CO2, this is the energy it will produce, yada, yada, yada. And that is shared with the banks. And now banks can understand how better or not is this project on climate parameters. And banks also want to decarbonize their balance sheets because they want to understand what will be the future impact of climate change on their balance sheets for loans that are given over 20 years. And now, what's the beauty of all of this? Bank will provide you interest at a reduced lowest rate. You get revenue out of carbon credits, and suddenly you are running an entire ROI friendly project. So this is what we do at ReNewCred by and large.
So it also seems to me that uh, the companies that are going to opt to come onto this platform as purchase as offsetting their carbons, there's no inherent altruistic behavior that's determining that, but it's more of a probably a public perception and a government mandate. Is that accurate to say?
While we started researching and building out the product, we also felt that there has to be some government mandate for the companies to act that way. I would say 99 of 100 people we spoke to said that, for lack of a better word, and pardon my French, that companies don't give a bullshit about climate. They only care about their profits. They don't care about what is happening. Fortunately enough, in Touchwood, the companies that we started speaking to, so we track companies by something called a Carbon Disclosure Project, CDP. Under CDP, companies speak about or put in their carbon parameters and their goals and how do they want to move to net zero. There's another system also called the Net Zero Tracker. There's a third system called Science Based Target Initiative. All of these allow provide us data on how companies are performing. Our company also is actually ReNewCred is a brand name, but our company name is Net Zero Initiative Private Limited. So that's how we're positioned. So we started speaking to these companies, and it turned out that they are doing it for altruistic reasons. They actually want to be net zero, irrespective of the fact that consumers are asking for it or not, because they understand that if they don't act on climate right now, their costs will increase, their cost of business will increase, their customers will start coming down. That's number one. And number two, they also want to be climate conscious. The newer generation, especially, understands climate a lot more. And to give you an example, Infosys, which had announced that they will be net zero by 2030, are already net zero right now. So that's how the data is moving.
Uh, and so, in terms of earning money for ReNewCred, right? Like, I wanted to understand that business model better. Uh, like, let's say the government of India puts out a law. I remember speaking to you about this a while ago, but by 2026, you mentioned there's some law coming into India. Uh, like, how does that sort of change the growth curve for a company like ReNewCred?
Awesome. So like I said, and like I started, any law that comes in.
We just probably first break down in simply and how ReNewCred makes money, and then probably.
Yeah. I'm just going for the reverse order because that will help you understand the money flow as well. But like I started, any law comes up only in the compliance market, not in the voluntary markets. So India has announced its carbon market or the compliance market. There is some form of compliance market already out there in schemes called PAT. We had something called a Surat ETS that happened. India is saying that we will have a compliance market by January 2026. The dates may be here and there. One phenomenon that we have observed is every time the compliance market comes up in a country, voluntary carbon markets also increase by a factor of 10x. So let's not talk about the EU and the Americas. Let's just focus on Asia and the Australian region. China, Japan, Australia. Every time a compliance market was announced over there, voluntary market improved by a factor of 10 to 12x. We're seeing the same phenomena in Indonesia. In 2023, they announced their some form of a compliance market in the power sector. The voluntary market has picked up tremendously. So for a company like ReNewCred, if government comes up with a regulation in the compliance market and starts its carbon market, our voluntary market will increase tremendously, and we will also become a verifier in the compliance market. Over here, we are a registry in the voluntary market, but we will become a verifier in the compliance market. It's a different product for us. Why does that happen, you will ask? It is because if some of the companies in the hard to abate sectors are, when I say hard to abate, these are sectors that are emitting a lot of carbon. So these are categorized as hard to abate. Think steel and cement right now. If they are doing good for the climate, the consumers will automatically start expecting other companies to also be better. And it creates awareness, it creates education. That is how voluntary markets pick up. Now, what is the business model with ReNewCred? And this is very important. Anything we do at ReNewCred, we only charge the buyers, not the suppliers. Now, what does it do? Two things. Number one, by charging the supplier, our incentives are not to produce more credits. If we had been charging the supplier, if we had been charging the supplier, our incentive would have been to produce more credits. But now we are charging the buyer. So our incentive is to uphold the highest standards. Second, it democratizes the entire market. So even say Elton Coelho launches a waste management company. Now you can enter the market. The current incumbent registries charge anywhere between 5 to 30% commissions. We don't do that. Also, we are moving towards a business model where we are delinking carbon credits produced to the number of to our commissions, to our business model, so that we are completely delinked from the carbon credit production. So that's how we make money. In the current scheme of things, there are two revenue streams. One is a small commission on the carbon credits or on the contract that's done, and which I said can be delinked from the credits also. It depends on buyer to buyer and offset to offset and quality of offsets. And the second way we make money is from the technology that we provide. So access to dashboard, which in technical terms is called DMRV, digital monitoring, reporting, and verification. So the dashboard we provide how many offsets were generated, what are the carbon credits, issuance, all of that. These are the two ways we make money.
So one is you're charging only the people who are polluting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
In layman's terms, you're charging the people who are polluting, not the people who are actually bringing on projects that are taking away carbon emissions, so that a small player can actually come in and participate in this. And uh, if the science is robust on the supplier side, they can actually start earning money for their initiatives.
that's
So
true.
that's how you're incentivizing carbon capture, technical carbon capture. That's how you're making more people sort of get attracted to actually doing this. Can you repeat what was the second mode?
The technology platform, the
Okay.
technology that we generate, the entire dashboard. Think of it like a SaaS tool. Now you can log in, you can see offsets generated, you can see what are the projects live. Because as a buyer, I won't only be putting money in one project. I will have a portfolio of projects. So I
Hmm.
want to monitor all of them. That happens through the dashboard.
Right. Interesting. And like, what is the what? How much do you expect to earn from all of this?
Awesome. So typically from an entire transition, it comes somewhere between maximum 3 to 4% in the entire transaction of the carbon credits. Our current estimates say that a project will generate about 15,000 credits a year. Say they are pegged at only $10, whereas the credit costs have gone as high as $1,800 right now. Only a couple of months ago, a project fetched $1,800 per credit by a registry based out of UK. But let's just say $10. So 15,000 into $10, whatever that number is, by 5%, we typically come to about and this is a high LTV business because any project lasts at least a minimum of 10 years and can go up to 100 years as well. So let's make up the minimum in 10 years time. We expect to generate about 150K per project as our charges, revenue charges. Uh, so yeah, typically like in the first year right now, we are doing about 8 projects. That's what we are targeting right now, which itself should give us a revenue visibility of $1.2 million. So that's how we do.
Interesting. Uh, and so, like, and what do you think is the total market size for all of this, like going forward?
Just on the issuance of carbon credit, so there are two things to it. One is GMV, that is the total money put in for the development of the projects. And this is right now pegged at $27 trillion. So I'm not getting into that. But just on the issuance of carbon credit, the market is expected to be a 100 billion market by 2030. Right now, as we speak, it's sitting at a 5.1, $5.2 billion number. This $100 billion comes from a report by Morgan Stanley and backed by a few other folks as well. Let me convert it into Indian terms because we are talking about the Indian markets and Indian audience right now. So we are looking at a total market size of a minimum and conservative of 25,000 crores by 2030. That's where we are sitting at.
Interesting. And so, like you mentioned, this is you're the first in the global south to be doing this. But how are you different from other carbon registries that exist already?
Awesome. So number one, the registry market in itself, another nuance we have is moving from being commoditized to creating their own niches. So something like Vera and Gold, they're masters of say nature-based offsets or social co-benefit offsets. The UK-based firm that I was talking about, Isometric, they are experts in carbon removal projects. ReNewCred is an expert in industrial decarbonization. We work with projects that lead to industrial decarbonization. That's our target, number one. Number two, we are different because it's backed by highly refined and experienced Indian acumen with 4 peer review cycles. Or when I say the use the word methodology, it's technically the broad pathway, the work that we are doing. So biochar is one methodology, EV is one methodology. So all our methodology is subjected to 4 peer review cycles. So if we are releasing a draft, there is one set of scientists that will review it, second set of scientists reviews. So they're very rigorous. They will be open to public comments as well. So that's number two. Number three, the speed with which we can put out methodologies is also very fast and independent of project developers. So few registries work with the developers to create the methodologies. We do it independently because again, everything we do, we want to uphold the highest standards. And see, our aim is to mitigate greenwashing also along with climate change. There's a lot of this thing that voluntary carbon market is all about greenwashing. So we're trying to solve for that as well. Number four, we are digitalizing the process. So there's something called as vintage. So vintage is that if you are a company buying carbon credits, you would like to buy offsets for the same year. You don't want to go back in the history and buy offsets for an old year because you want to mitigate your current year's carbon emissions. Now, by reducing this turnaround time, we are actually helping resolve for vintage as well. So technology, and fourth is the data. See, carbon markets voluntary is not like the 1990s stock exchange. It's too opaque. Nobody knows what is happening. So we're solving from transparency as well. So these are 3, 4 ways in which we are quite different.
So I had a question here. Like, say, let's say I'm Apple. I'm
Yeah.
producing X amount of carbon emissions this year, right? And let's say there's a government mandate that I have to reduce. I have to be carbon neutral by a certain year. So basically, I can't release that X amount of carbon emissions this year. So then I'll come to you and say that, hey, there are, and you'll probably come to me and say these are the companies that are removing carbon from the air to these tech-based initiatives. You choose one which you resonate with, and you're saying that there's the highest standards of transparency, trust, and technical expertise that are backing us. But I'm still only doing it for that specific year, right? What about my historic emissions that have been that are there?
So like I
That's what.
said, yeah. I will address this first because then we might end up confusing this. So like I said, this is not a year-on-year thing. It happens for a long year. So the contracts are signed for 10, 20, 100 years as well. And for your historic emissions, there is removal aspect to it. So you can put in additional money toward carbon removal, not just to mitigate what government is saying, but if you want to be out there and say that, hey, I actually mean business as far as climate change is concerned. This is the historical emissions that I have done so far, and now I will try to remove them as well. So you can put in additional money. To be honest, we are not seeing that phenomena happen right now.
Yeah, because I think that's a lot. That's expecting companies to be a little bit too altruistic to say that, hey, we're going to take everything. We're going to try and take everything. I think few
Right
companies.
now, the goal is to reach net zero. What is
Hmm.
net zero is your total carbon emissions, input output comes flatline zero. And then we will accelerate the removal journey also. net zero is important because after reaching that number, our temperatures will we expect them to become stable. And
Mhm.
this 1.5 to 2 degree delta that we can't breach, because after that our planet will
Yeah.
becoming inhabitable. And
Yeah.
that's a broad based average delta. In
Yeah.
certain regions we're already seeing 3.5 degrees Celsius hit. So
Yeah.
how climate change is affecting people.
And it's very interesting to see how the narrative also around climate change over the years has changed to adaptation instead of eliminating.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on that?
Adaptation is our plan B right now. It will provide us time until and unless mitigation measures kick in at the speed. And like I said, we discussed Wright's law. So that moment these costs come down, there are mass level CCUS projects. Think in terms of nuclear. Nuclear energy took a lot time to go develop and reach the levels in a country like India. We have what one CCUS project right now by Tata at Tata Works in Jamshedpur, but there's an entire task force on CCUS as we speak. There are reports that are planned out how multiple CCUS segments will come up all over the nation. So it will take its own time, but mitigate, like I said, adaptation allows that time for mitigation efforts to kick in.
So you'll be the first. You'll have first mover advantage in this space for sure. And at least from the theory, when you're talking about it, it sounds like a huge. There's a lot of potential from it for the company as well. Now I want to get more into tactics because there is the theory behind it. Now how are you going about it tactically? So there are there are some key pillars that I sensed from this conversation. One was the trust that you need to build with organizations that want to offset their carbons. Then there is the speed of actually checking out if the carbon is efficiently getting captured, your technical capabilities to do so, and just the time in which it takes. So how are you actually tackling both these two things, which is trust and how effective is the carbon getting captured?
Yeah. So let me break this down in three, 4 points. One is where are we generating value? So we are creating value in three ways. One is what we call industrial decarbonization. So an enterprise, let's hypothetically say Wayne Enterprises, it's harming the climate. So Wayne Enterprises itself sets up projects, and we go over there and we help them understand how the project can be better, because we already have OEM level data right now. So we help them understand how they can create better projects, become somewhat of an accreditation body over there, where we calculate what are the exact number of offsets they actually removed from the atmosphere, or they purchase basically, and provide that data, all that data to them. So this is the number one thing we do. There are three kinds of emissions before we get into further. One is called a scope 1 emission, which is emission on the premise. The other is called a scope 2 emission, which is emissions by the utilities. And the third is called scope 3 emissions, which is emissions in the supply chain, which is upstream, downstream, your vendors, your raw material buyers, all of those are doing, but that's not something that's under your control. In India, unfortunately, 78% emissions are scope 3. So an enterprise can't control those emissions. Now, for a smaller MSME, suppose I'm a small company sending raw materials to you. What is scope 1 for me becomes scope 3 for you. But you still have to work with the smaller companies. Now, unfortunately, now these are called SMEs globally, these are called MSMEs in India. They have a very narrow vision. They don't think in 100 years, 200 years. They think in 4 or 5 years. So again, using that same, pardon my French, but bullshit, they don't even think about climate change. The only thing they're doing is, I have to deliver this thing to a larger enterprise. Now, enterprises know they have to reduce their scope 3. So what happens? We go to the enterprise. We tell them this is the carbon that these small MSMEs are releasing in the atmosphere. Let us work with you to help them. So we'll go to a typical Wayne enterprise and ask Wayne enterprise to put in, to request, say, this Clark Kent MSME to put in a solar project over there. So Wayne enterprise might provide some financial incentives for this company to put up a solar project. This leads to supply chain decarbonization or removal of
So,
scope emissions.
just sorry to cut you off. Why would the Wayne Enterprise give? a solar project to the Clark
Awesome.
Kent.
Yeah,
And
Clark Kent. So like I said, they want to reduce their scope 3 emissions as well. They
okay,
have to reduce their scope 3 because reporting has become stringent. They understand that it is because of them these emissions are happening. So if
right,
I'm a main enterprise, it's because of me that this person was delivering the raw materials to me. So finally, it's my responsibility to reduce carbon emissions over there.
right. It's sort of like a big king sort of feeling like, okay, these guys are sort of my subjects, and uh, I have some responsibility for them, and because I need to also meet, I feel also the big companies have a certain pressure because of social pressure and also government pressure to
Yeah.
uh, so that they have, okay, I'm understanding.
Yeah. And now this Wayne Enterprise, the CEO is Bruce Wayne. This is Clark Kent. Now Clark Kent can put up sustainable transition projects, generate credits out of it, and sell those credits to Bruce Wayne. So what will happen is now Clark Kent and Bruce Wayne, they were already dealing in goods, but they're also dealing in carbon credits right now. So the bond between them is more intimate. They will be more friendlier towards each other. I'm using some DC language. I hope they don't strike me for copyright now. But that's what will happen. So this leads to supply chain decarbonization. That's the second thing we're doing. And what is supply chain? This 78% scope 3 that I talk about. That people are not addressing right now. That carbon markets are not addressing right now. Because even compliance market takes care of broadly scope 1 and 2, but not scope 3. And the third thing we are doing is we are democratizing the entire market. So like I said, we don't charge the supplier anything. We only charge the buyer. So you're a small company. You say, I'm doing good for the climate. I also want some kind of a carbon credit clawback revenue to be generated. Can you help me? You come to us. We'll say, yes, this is our methodology. If your project stands the most rigorous methodologies that we are creating, if it stands the test of time and the test of the methodology, it will generate some carbon credits and the buyers will pick it up. These are three ways we generate value in the ecosystem.
Yeah,
That's how we go about that.
that's interesting. I want to break down the numbers in terms for a small company coming as a supplier,
Hmm.
right? Like, let's say I am manufacturing sustainable bags. Uh, would that come under would that come under a supplier category?
See, any kind of CO2 removal or reduction project should hit a minimum baseline number of CO2 to be actually be viable enough to be considered a carbon offset project, number one. Number two, we as a company, ReNewCred, should have a methodology for it. So our
Hmm.
constraint is not the sectors that we work in. It's the methodologies that we release. So as we speak right now, the scientists at ReNewCred are working on releasing two methodologies, biochar and EV fleets. Biochar because it engineered biochar because it provides long-term carbon reduction and removal. EV fleets because the demand from that from Indian markets is quite high. And then there are 32 up to 32 methodologies that we have planned over the next 3 to 4 years that we will be releasing. So if these two things are there, there is sufficient viability on the number of offsets and we have a methodology for it, yes, you can be a part of it. And then
Hmm.
you should actually be doing better than what is called a baseline. If you're harming the environment more, say I you generate a sustainable something, let's say any good, but just harming the environment more than what its conventional alternative is doing, then obviously no offsets will be calculated. So there's an entire body of knowledge called the life cycle analysis that happens with the methodology to ascertain how many offsets will this project generate.
Okay. So let's say this product meets your criteria and it passes through your the test that you give, and it's actually net it's good for the planet, right? Now, how much money can they expect to earn?
Again, it depends a lot on the nature of project, on the kind of offsets that generated. To again give you an example, right now renewable energy credits are trading in India anywhere between $1.5 to $3, $4, whereas biochar engineered biochar credits go as high as $20, $25, $30. CCUS DAX credit go 80, 90, $100 as well. Like I said, one of the CCUS projects fetched $1,800 a credit, and then you're because it's an opaque market and it's still at the discretion of the supplier and the buyer at what cost they want to buy. That also creates some kind of a block right now to understand what are the pricing that is happening in the markets. So a lot of factors come into play. What is the time period? Is it reduction or removal? Obviously, removal will fetch more than reduction or adaptation. What's the energy use? Does it have social co-benefits along with it or not? So what are social co-benefits? Was a farmer helped? Was somebody else helped? Did you improve livelihood? Did you improve water, sanitation, air? So there are a lot of factors that come into play. For renewable energy, just but still to give you a data point, for renewable energy, we are seeing carbon credit clawbacks in the range of 10 to 15% of the capex right now. That's something that we are seeing in India. Again, there is a very important clause called additionality that people don't talk about. So what is additionality is that the project shouldn't have happened in due course of action. It should have become economically viable only because carbon credit revenue was put into the project. If I'm doing something only because I was supposed to do it, now I want to take the benefit of carbon credits, that won't qualify for carbon credits. Because you were not setting up a project with the intention of generating carbon credits out of it, or the carbon credits would have helped you do the project. The revenue of the carbon credit should actually help you do the project, and that is called an additionality clause. So there are a lot of factors, and then there is leakage that's calculated. There's the permanence of the project. There's the reliability of the project. So a lot of parameters we have to calculate. Trying to dumb it down as much as possible for the audience, but yeah.
Yeah. And so now shifting again more towards the tactics, like how did you go and hire these scientists? Like what made them come to you guys?
Yeah, so this was a pretty interesting one. Because of my past work that you know about around water purification, climate change, and the hospital projects and all, I did have some networks that I plugged into, typically in the IITs and NITs in India. And these are colleges in India. Spoke to a few scientists, tried to onboard them as mentors, still talking a lot to a lot of them, have some great advisors on board. And then out of the blue, we launched on a couple of job portals this application asking for doctorates to join the ReNewCred team. We told our story out there. We told them why exactly we are working on tech-based offices versus nature-based and how this can be a game changer. When we expected about when we put in these two job portals, LinkedIn and another one, we expected about 30-40 applications to come, and we will talk to them, interview them, and try to hire them. It's always us trying to hire them, not they trying to be a part of us. And that's the culture that we have developed at ReNewCred. We uphold to every employees, whether it be part time, full time. We understand their limitations, their spaces, their work, and we let like typically to build three. We let them select what is something that they enjoy doing. Within 2 days, no, yeah, within 2 days we had about 750 applications. At the 1350 application mark, we had to unfortunately shut down the application pool itself. 80% of them are doctorates. So we put in 2, 3 filters as we speak. We just closed the phase two filtration. And 5th September onwards, we're getting into more detailed interviews. It's been terrific. And there are so many people who have come up and told us this is something that the world needs, and we are ready to work pro bono with you. This is amazing. This is fantastic. And like you said, that website, fortunately enough for us, the scientists understood what we are writing. So yeah, like it's one of those things that every morning and every morning I wake up, every night I go to sleep, it gives me goosebumps on what I am doing. What is something that we as a team are doing and how it can save the world. So it's been a fun journey so far, and that's how we're getting the scientists on board and the engineers also now.
And what contributed to that the massive application? Like was it the story itself? And just because it's a novel concept right now in India that no one is doing it, and that's why they just wanted to get attracted to it.
Story for sure. even the scientists understand, especially the ones who have worked in carbon markets, very completely understand the constraints that nature-based offsets provide right now. Number two. Number three, and this could be a misnomer. This could be something that I am talking about my philosophical understanding. But I've seen scientists have a very high moral hierarchy as well. They somehow want to change the world at a faster speed compared to other us Homo sapiens. And so they realize this as an opportunity to create massive impact, to create long lasting impact. And that's the stories that come into us. Number four, just the entire unfortunate financial ecosystem in India that we are living in. We tend to care more about influencers and Instagram celebrities versus our scientists. So there is that perspective also that's involved. That a lot of people are looking for change to break barriers, work with startups, work in a high performing environment. So four, five factors are played out. I'm still collecting data as we get into interview and better understand the mindset of the scientists. But at least from the stories, this is what I'm getting right now.
Interesting. And so tell me, I know you're like on your website, you mentioned you're the scientist and your co-founder is the economist. So tell me about your co-founder and how did that pairing happen and how do you guys complement each other?
Yeah, so it was serendipity at its best. We met at one of the founder residency program by one of the world's largest venture cap firms. He has a massive experience in the banking sector. Set up a few banks, a few gold loan and other kind of loan verticals for this banking company. So he understands economics, he understands policies very well, he understands the relationship building with industries. I, for one, I love science. I'm just addicted to science and nature and how to make this world a better place. So you will find me either innovating something or reading astrophysics and Carl Sagan of the world. And somehow our synergies met, our potentials met. We enjoyed working with one another. As we speak, we've also onboarding a couple of more amazing folks on co-founder level. So once this friend of mine. I worked with him for over a decade now. So he's coming in as a CTO kind of a person, and then there's one more person who understands climate by and large. So he might also come in. So team is expanding, and yeah, it's been fun. It's been a fun journey so far. Obviously, it has its ups and downs as well. Climate is
Yeah,
not.
tell me some of the downs. Yeah, this is largely positive. I need some downs. Let's make it spicy.
Yeah, let's make it spicy. Let the Bruce Wayne and Clark Kent fight. So the downs have been that, like you mentioned, it's been difficult to put out a story out there. There's a lot of complexity surrounding it. We're getting better at it, but it's still a journey that we have to undertake. Even with our website, it's the same thing that we are not clearly able to understand what you're doing because that's not the audience that we have built the website for. Going out to investors and raising money, for us earlier it was spray and pray. Now we've understood that we will require a GTM on capital as well. So we're only going out to investors who understand climate change right now. Fortunately enough, the things are progressing well. Talking to enterprises earlier was a challenge, but it was anticipated that the challenge will be there. Thankfully, enterprises understand that this is a requirement and they're willing to walk the talk with us. On the supplier side, working with MSMEs has been a has been a breeze right now, because we are not an expense for them; we are a revenue for them. So they understand by doing this, it will be awesome. But still, there are some operational difficulties that come up. They're not ready to put in certain amount of capex to better their projects. So over there, we are developing what is called an engineers innovation playbook. So these same scientist folks, some of them are working on creating playbooks that will be given out to these SMEs who can understand how to better develop their projects that will lead to higher carbon credit potential. So there's a lot of refinement that happened along the way that we proceeded. But yeah, every day I speak to at least one person who tells me this can't be done. This is all bullshit. It will take a lot of time. People don't want to change. and somehow that makes me do this a lot more all over again. So yeah, it's fun. It's fun.
I like that. I like that. And what's been the response from the companies, from the buyer side? Like, what have they been talking? And
Yeah.
like, can you give names of the companies you were approaching, or is that confidential?
Unfortunately, giving the names without an agreement in place won't be possible right now. But to give you a flavor of it, these are mostly public listed companies. Like I said, we are using the Carbon Disclosure Project to understand the company profiling. Reached out to them. The response by and large has been good. It's because it's very early days for us and our tech is still being built out. So it will take some time for these agreements to be locked in. We're also seeing very good response from other stakeholders on the buyer side. So we are about to close partnership with a couple of exchanges. We're talking to brokers and traders as well. Now, just to let you know, this is not something that we need to do as a company because our stack is the registries in the technology, not assuring that those credits are sold, but we're just trying to help the suppliers into quickly being able to sell their credits. There's more of an additional thing that we offer to them. Yes, for sure, our revenue only comes when the credit is sold, so that's a separate thing. So yeah, good traction both on the buyer and supplier side. Very good traction, I would say.
And how much are you looking to raise right now? And how much have you raised so far?
So we are right now, the round is on. We are raising a minimum 350K right now. That will enable us to A, build out the entire tech by December. Second, we will launch 4 pathways with biochar and EV fleets being the first two. And the second is methane reduction and circular economy in textiles. Three, it will allow us to initiate 8 projects, giving us a revenue visibility of $1.2 million. And four, it will allow us to build the community on the 250 scientist community that I'm talking about, and also build a small community on chief sustainability officers all over India. So these are the 4 things we are promising in the next 9 months. The 350K will last us anywhere between 12 to 15 months right now, and then we'll go into the next round of funding. How much have we raised? We have soft commitments right now, but we're still looking for a lead or any kind of a strategic investor to come into picture. But yeah, like I said, I'm not even thinking about capital as aggressively right now. I'm just enjoying the product. I'm just in between that fun.
Yeah, interesting. And like you're doing so many things, man. Like you're working on this, you're working on Last Pivot with Sakshi. I don't know if I'm sure there's other one or two projects that are up your sleeve that you're working on. Like how are you managing all this?
Yeah, so right now the entire focus completely is ReNewCred. Last Pivot or any other projects on the philanthropy level with Vardhan Foundation that I'm leading right now with my younger brother Vardhan, where we have set up what is now Asia's largest hospital on a PPP model. So these are some stuff that keep me happy. I don't want to use a lot of jargon. At Last Pivot, we help early stage founders understand the complexity surrounding the startup environment. And you know it better than anybody else, I think. Any other human on the face of earth, you know this better. So I just enjoy talking to folks and helping them in any capacity that's possible.
Yeah,
Sometimes you do it for the wallet, sometimes you do it for the soul, and sometimes you do it for the heart. It's only the books that satisfy your brain, at least in my case.
yeah,
So yeah, that's how the planning on the programs is right now.
awesome. And what do you see as the, let's say, we talk in build3, we talk about a press release, right? Let's say a 5 years down the lane, what's going to be the press release for the new trend?
Yeah, like Jim Collins puts it, the big, hairy, audacious goal is the removal or reduction of 3 gigatons of CO2 in the next 10 years. That's our goal. Out of which 75% will target scope 3 emissions. We also plan to at least help finance 300,000 projects in the next 10 years. The 300,000 projects will get the climate reporting from us. These are 3 broad goals that we have. Perhaps one of the largest decarbonization, industrial decarbonization projects on the face of Earth. That's what we are gunning for.
And like, I just wanted to know more about why are people sort of coming up to you and saying this is not possible? Is it because of the buy-in, like lack of buy-in from large companies, lack of buy-in, like lack of economic viability of the CCUs? What is it exactly?
Two, three things. The climate carbon credit mechanism, carbon markets voluntary have seen at least two waves previously. So one wave was in the 2008-9 era, the other wave was in 12-13 era. Both of them had some kind of structural problems associated with them, and the carbon markets couldn't pick up. It is only after the 2015 Paris Agreement that the carbon markets have become a lot more stringent. So people who come from the old days are skeptical about whether carbon markets will pick up or not, voluntary carbon markets specifically. The other reason why folks are saying this, that this might not work out, is their lack of understanding of the carbon space by and large. They still believe that nature-based offsets will perform a lot better than tech-based offsets because enterprises are investing. It's a low-hanging fruit. You can just go and build it out. The cost of technology right now is still expensive. The rights law still
Perceived, correct?
perceived differently. The rights law still has to play out. They're looking at a short-term gain right now. These are two broad things that why people say. And third, if you talk about investors specifically in the Indian markets, and we are to yet to see the foreign markets, they're skeptical about climate at large. And I'm okay to put it out that there are a lot of ESG SaaS companies right now, but climate requires patient capital. It requires understanding. It requires understanding of climate, understanding of what exactly we are building, understanding of sciences. Both Indian market in that perspective is still developing as far as the VC capital is concerned. So these three things.
I think you might have more success raising from outside. Is that possible? Like
It is a
outside India?
possibility. It is a possibility. It's something that we still have to look out for. It's something that we have just recently started doing. But let's see. Let's see.
Yeah, man, this has been great. Thank you so much. Uh, I've definitely feel a little less hopeless about the whole climate change situation, and while still there's a long, like it's like there's a long way to go, and there's the alarm bells are still on, and uh, we're not in the clear anywhere in the near future. At least there are smart people like you who are working on this idea, and like hopefully will move the needle as well.
Yeah.
Do you have any like closing remarks that you want to tell people?
Yeah, my only advice or my only plea request to people is there's a lot of wrong in the world that we as humans can go out and change. And while it's good to be pessimist sometimes, it's good to let the world know that there's something wrong happening. What is even better is to go out there and change the world and make it a beautiful place to live in. So if you as individual think that, and I'm sure, I hope you do, think that climate change is actually a problem, which it really is, start making changes in your lifestyle, start living a net zero life, start innovating on projects, start developing projects that lead to circular economy. And if each one of us as individuals starts doing that, it will just be a matter of time when we defeat climate change. So that's my only request, and I'm always available. I keep shuffling between Bangalore and Surat these days, mostly in Bangalore. And if Elton requests me, I will be down to Goa as well. But I'm always available for a chat, for anything in any capacity. In any capacity, ReNewCred can help through our scientist network, through our methodologies. Would love to do that. Love to do that. So yeah, just let's go out there and save the world collectively.
That's awesome, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So we do this where the guest nominates two people. Like who do you think? So we're looking for people who have built impact startups successfully. Do you have people in your mind who you would sort of nominate for this for
Wow.
this podcast.
Yeah, yeah. First immediate name comes to me is Sakshi Shah and Lawrence. They're building this amazing company called Good Lives in the mental wellness space. Pleased to interview them. They're creating massive impact right now. The other name would be, I guess, our One Board founders who are providing this amazing experience. So Ray and Ryan, they would be amazing to interview. Yeah, so many amazing starters that the two of us and the larger build 3 team have co-built at build 3 over the last 2 to 3 years. So
Yeah,
let's take them, get their stories out there.
awesome, awesome. Thank you so much. I'm just gonna take a screenshot right now for LinkedIn. So put your Clark Kent face on.
Today, I have to be serious now.
No, I took when you're laughing. No, I took again. Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you.